There were times that she did not want to read the book at all. So we were pushing each other कि भाई पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. We have no other choice. Classics are the soul of literature, I believe. भाई हमको पढ़ के ख़त्म करना है. पेचीदा means twisty, okay? Your mind, your subconscious mind will be like, भाई ये छोटा है, ये हम पढ़ लेंगे. Every time I read a big book, especially big classics, a lot of people who firstly think classic to be very intimidating, and that to big classics to be like extremely intimidating, would always acknowledge the fact that how do I read big books like that? How is it so easy for me to, be so confident about reading a book that can be extremely intimidating for a lot of people for a lot of good real reasons? So I thought, why not just make a video where I talk about how I tackled Anna Karenina, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. So you can see all the tabbings right here. Hi guys, this is Simran. Welcome back to another video where I talk all bookish. And today's video is not anybody's requested video. Nobody requests me video, honestly. But I just decided to make your life a little easier when it comes to reading classics. I know a few of you are not interested into reading classics at all, maybe because of a few reasons, like classics are boring, classics are dense to read, classics are very tough to comprehend, and those are big in size, so you just would want to invest that time into reading something very easy breezy and not something that you think will not be worth it. But let me tell you, once you start reading classics, there's no looking back. I have a few pointers on how you can tackle books like Anna Karenina, War and Peace, and The Brothers Karamazov. And when I say I'm going to tell you how to read big books, I don't only specifically mean big classics. It can be any book, any genre of your choice, but maybe the size is humongous, so it's like a little intimidating for you. But with these kind of tips and tricks, maybe I would not like to claim these as tips and tricks, but if you want to extract any ideas that I use personally to tackle big books, that actually would be really helpful for you. But before we begin, let me give you a disclaimer. The tips and the tricks that we are going to discuss today for reading big books, especially classics, I would also like to mention that some of them are not applicable for all the kind of books that you read, for all kinds of books that you read. For example, I am currently reading Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. It is a big book, okay? Any book that is like beyond 500 pages is a big book for me. Not necessarily that it has to be like 800-900 pages. Any book that looks like this thick is a big book for me. Now this is not a classic and not a not a genre that is historical fiction for you to annotate a lot or maybe start tabbing with. Some people may like doing it, but for me, I feel books that are like maybe fantasy, dystopian, or contemporary in general, but are thick in nature, do not need a lot of tabbing, apart from the fact that you can just tab the portions where the parts have been segregated. But for me, I did not do any kind of tabbing with this book because I'm like literally enjoying the feel of reading this book like very breezily, and I don't feel the need to do anything with this book of sorts that I kind of do with my classics in general before I actually start reading them. So not all the tips and tricks are generally for all kind of genre. Mostly I'm going to speak about classics because those are actually the kind of books, or that is one genre that everybody kind of escapes from and don't find the need to read it. So let's begin. So first thing is to identify your real struggle. Now, what is your real struggle when it comes to reading a book, big book? Now, when you look at a big classic, what is the first thing that comes into your mind that is intimidating or stopping you from reading that book? Maybe you want to experience that author, or you want to love that author's work, but what is that one thing that is stopping you from picking that big book that the entire universe must be speaking about, but you're like, what, I can't do it? What is that one thing? You have to figure that out. For me, when I started reading classics, it was always the size and the commitment that I had to put into it, right? Obviously, I cannot expect to read an entire thick chunk of a book like War and Peace in maybe a week or even a month, because it is nearly 1300 paged book, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it is nearly 1300 page book. So it is unrealistic of me to even have a mark like that to be reading it in 1 month. But maybe there are people who are reading it in a month because they have a reading book club, and they have some tactics of their own that actually works for them. But we are not in a rat race of finishing books, big books, in a week or in a month. That is going to like literally give you nothing. For example, if I was reading War and Peace in just a week, I would just be reading it for the sake of it. Maybe just skim reading it just to tell the world that what, I have read War and Peace. But you know how many days I took to read War and Peace? I nearly took 6 months. 6 months of reading War and Peace. And when I say that I have taken 6 months to read the book, I am not saying that मैंने एक साथ में 6 months लिया. I took breaks in between because it is overwhelming to read a big classic. But you also have to be very sure when you take a break from reading a classic that you will have to come back to the book. You cannot ditch the book at all. For me, it was easier because I love Leo Tolstoy and I was loving the book. I had taken breaks in between because I had my semesters going on back then, and then I repicked this book. And then there was another time when I was feeling overwhelming. I felt myself to be going down the lane of reading slump. And so I decided to stop reading that book. I took my leisure time to pick this book again. And then one fine day I decided, you know what? It's time that I wrap this book. So this should be your mindset when you read the book. The next struggle could be the language. Now, the entire world who do not read classic assume classics to be tough to understand without even reading them. There are times that I don't understand a few things. There are times that it confuses me because back then in the 1800s, a few places across the globe were named differently, and now it is different. There were certain, partitions happened later after the book must be written. So there are some city or country names problem, or there are some historical aspects that I don't understand. So in that case, I Google, okay, without spoiler. I always Googled when I was reading Anna Karenina and War and Peace, because there are parts that we are reading from that era which kind of makes no sense to be reading in this era. So it is a little struggle to get through. But when you Google and you try and understand, you easily get through it. Easily. And I'm speaking about all this with all my experience of reading all these books. And let me tell you, dense language factor is only going to break down once you start reading. Like, if you don't read or attempt reading at all in the first place, how will you even understand if it's for you or if it's working out for you? Because for me, I cannot say that, self-help book doesn't work for me without reading them. I have, tried a couple of self-help book, and I realized that, this one genre doesn't work for me, do not help me in any way. And only then did I come up with the saying of I don't like this book or this genre at all. So only when I experienced or explored the genre did I understand that if it's worth my taste or not. So once you start reading classics, if you think ki you want to read Leo Tolstoy, for example, and you want to know what is the hype about, but you don't want to read War and Peace and Anna Karenina because of the size. Maybe it's like intimidating because of the size or the dense language or the commitment issue that you have, because all these are the identified real struggles that we discussed. I would suggest that you pick something short of the author, like some short book. For example, I started Leo Tolstoy because I wanted to explore the author, and I actually wanted to start with Anna Karenina, but then I decided, you know what, I have this struggle, I have the commitment issue, I might also end up DNFing the book, which I don't want to. So let me start with a small book. And then I read How Much Land Does a Man Need? It's a compilation of 2 short stories, like the small penguin book, the Black Mini. I remember reading that book and was in awe of how Tolstoy wrote. Nothing like Pechida that you won't be understanding. It's all like, Pechida means twisty, okay? It's all very simple and subtle, served onto your plate, and you take it and you be like, oh my god, I love this dal chawal. I assume that Tolstoy would serve me a very twisty French or Russian dish that I will not be able to digest. But later I found ki bhai, he's serving me dal chawal. And I was like, you know what? This is what I needed. I had to experience the author first so as to take the big plunge on reading the big books. And I actually, honestly, very happily did read Anna Karenina and followed by War and Peace by the author. And I look forward to reading other books by him as well. But yeah, so you have to take the plunge with small steps. And with small steps, I mean small books. So if you are still wondering how to pick a big book or how to pick a classic author, start with the small versions of their writing. Your mind, your subconscious mind will be like, "ये भाई ये छोटा है, ये हम पढ़ लेंगे." That's about it. That's the solution to your struggles. The next one that I wrote is shift your mindset. Okay, so when we read any book, any classic specifically, we should not be having this thing in our mind कि भाई हमको पढ़ के ख़त्म करना है. We should not be having a thought in our mind that we have to read it by any chance. We have to finish it in like 1 week or 1 month. Like we should not be having that time frame set for one book. You do not extract anything from the literature. You just read it for the sake of reading it, just to show the world कि भाई I have read all these classics. But for you to, you know, grab everything in the book, digest it properly, you cannot set a time frame for classics, specifically for big classics. You have to build a very beautiful relationship with the classic so that once you're done with the book altogether, you feel like, you know, going back to it very often, at least the annotated part of it, and you know, go read the feeling of it, go understand and take out the characters from it. It happens only when you build a relationship with it. And in this context, let me mention, when you're reading a classic, it's better if you're reading a classic for the first time to keep some other short books handy. I did the same while I was reading Anna Karenina. So when you're reading a big classic, it can be overwhelming at times. Or if you don't want to race through the book, you want to build a relationship with a classic, you might want to keep something on the other hand. So for example, you might want to segregate the time ki subah uth ke the first thing that I want to do is read 2 pages or 5 pages of the classic that I'm reading. And then throughout the day, if you're busy working, good for you. Or if at night you want to, you know, when you are like free at home, you want to read something, pick something else. So when you're simultaneously doing it, if you're reading 2 books at the same time, one classic and one contemporary romance maybe, or something or the other, or short story collection, whatever genre fits your interest best, that helps you go through classics. Why? Because you are subconsciously set in your mind. Psychologically, you are set and convinced that bhai, I'm reading this book at this point, like reading a classic at this point, I will take it slow, but meanwhile let me read something else, so that once that book is finished, I hit a goal ki bhai, I have read one book at least this month. But meanwhile you're also reading a classic, which will take time obviously, but you're reading some other books that will keep the balance going parallelly. I always insist people doing it. I do that myself. So the third most important and most ambitious thing about reading a classic, or to read a classic, is to divide the book into different chapters. This is my copy of War and Peace, if you can see, right? And we have annotations here as well. Can you see the top of my book? It is segregated. So these are basically the chapter divisions which I did, because that kind of helps, motivates, I would say. It motivated me to reach that chapter level or that part level when I was reading this. I think this is the segregation of a part and not, wait, let me just check one. But I have to say, classic का एक अच्छा बात तो है, classics में ना chapters छोटे छोटे होते हैं. Yeah, so if you can see, the top of the classic is all segregated. That pretty much indicates the new part. So this book had a lot of parts, okay? And before starting to read this book, I decided to segregate the parts and the chapters. But yeah, these are all the annotations because I was reading the book religiously. I was literally scribbling everything down on like paper tabs and putting it on when I was reading the book. That kind of also helped me to, you know, analyze the book a lot better, in a lot better way. Sometimes I would not understand a few things. I would Google that and understand it better, and then I would write it on the notes and put it and tab it in the book. So these are all the tabs that accumulated. But yeah, the upper annotation is basically the segregation of the book. That kind of helps you set a goal. For example, you've annotated as part 1 and you have a goal in your mind ki, okay, I will complete part 1 in the first week of reading the book. That is what I did. And then you accomplish that and you look the tabbing and it feels good. Your mind releases a dopamine of accomplishment and then it pushes you forward to read more. This is the psychology behind tabbing, at least from what I understood by the research, and it actually works, trust me. Otherwise I would not be tabbing so much on my classics. You would not see me tabbing in any other genre, in any other books apart from classics, because this really comes in handy when it comes to reading classics. And you may also segregate the entire classic chapter wise, because one chapter a day kind of signifies that you are winning and 2 chapter is a bonus. And then you might also set a goal ki bhai hafte mein I have to read 5 chapters, throughout the week I will read 5 chapters. So put a tab on the 5th chapter and read throughout the week however you can manage. When you set a goal like that, 5 chapters or 4 chapters a week, you kind of push yourself to reach the goal, and then the psychological aspect of it comes ahead. The dopamine gets released and pushes you more to do it. So with that you get into the book easily. Now because you're reading the book slowly, tabbing the book, setting your weekly goals or daily goals, you're basically spending a lot of time with the book. You're spending a lot of time with the characters in the book, so you're naturally getting attached to the book. Maybe initially it is a little complicated to get into a classic, but once you start getting used to the book, once you start setting goals and achieving them, once you start meeting the characters pretty much every day, you do not want to read anything else but the classic only. The next important thing that I suggest that you do is switch to audiobooks. Now I am not an audiobook person. I feel that when you're not reading and listening, somebody narrating you the story kind of eases your work. So you are not basically banging your head on the wall to understand what, or to concentrate on the book. You're just sitting idle listening to the audiobook, somebody narrating it to you, just like a normal story. That kind of helps you keep going. So audiobook can be one thing that you can switch to. Also, the 5th is the most favorite. Take it social. Like for example, so when I was reading Anna Karenina, we didn't have the feature of reel on Instagram. I remember posting about Anna Karenina every day, putting out content about Anna Karenina on my page. People were influenced. There were a lot of people who DM'd me saying, what, you convinced me to read Anna Karenina. And I actually want to make an entirely different video on how Anna Karenina changed my life altogether. But for now, I will just say that I was putting this reading, tracking everything about Anna Karenina out on social media on my Instagram page. By the way, if you want to follow, please do. So there it is, an entirely different world of Anna Karenina going on my Instagram page, and that helped me. How, you ask? I would say when you're busy reading a book and you're putting out content about book, people are engaging with your content. People are very interested into how you're reading it and what you're doing and what are the tactics that you must be using to read a big book like this. You are more you are under pressure. Now you feel that the world is waiting for you to complete the book and put your thoughts out, so you need to read it. So under that pressure, you pretty much read the book more religiously and put content out for people out there. If you are comfortable reading a book together with somebody else, I think buddy read can also help. Buddy readings can be of great rescue when it comes to reading big books. I remember reading A Little Life with my sister. When we were buddy reading kind of helped me get through the book a lot, many times, because there were times that I didn't want to read the book at all, and there were times that she did not want to read the book at all. So we were pushing each other ki bhai padna hi padega, we have no other choice. And that is how we tackled the book together and we actually completed the book. Otherwise, if I was reading that alone, I would never be able to do it, honestly. So that being said, buddy reading can be of great help when you're reading a big classic. The 6th point is romanticize the experience. Now, reading a classic can be anyways very tedious, right? It's going to be a little tiresome for a lot of people and fun for a few people. For me, it's fun and boring at the same time. But I feel that if you can, have a cozy corner for you to read a book, maybe it's just my ideology, okay? A cozy corner, a very segregated time frame where you're reading the book, maybe the goal setting 5 pages of this time of the day. In this corner of my room, I'll be reading War and Peace with a music on. I think that can also be help helpful because the idea of this entire situation or the scenery kind of feels and sounds therapeutic. So people who are like anyways very tired throughout the day with all the daily chores and office work and stuff like that may want to give this ritual a try. And you do not have to kind of insist your brain to do it. It should come naturally ki bhai, I love this therapeutic session of mine every day, I'm going to do it every day. It should be like a ritual that you're practicing. The last one pretty much sounds like unnecessary, but I think if you actually do it, maybe that could be like helpful. No rush to read the book can help you get through the book. You just have to take it as a very holy way of dealing with it, and it will help you acquire or extract so much from the book that you will not even imagine in your wildest dreams. Because with Anna Karenina it happened the same. I was reading the book out of passion, and by the time I flipped the last page, I got to learn so much from a fiction that it is impossible for me to learn the equal amount of things from a non-fiction or a self-help book. And that is the reason I say that fictions can be of real help if you read it in a way. And with these 6 points I come to the end of the video, but all I have to say is that classics are not to conquer. Actually, people take classics as I don't know what, war maybe, कि भाई मेरे को तो जीतना ही है. Befriend the characters in the book, befriend the history in the book, and research more about the book. I don't understand the reason why people commit to a specific book. You don't have to commit to it. You may read the book whenever you want to read it. Just make it a consistent routine. Read 1 page a day. That will help you get past the book, maybe taking a year. Who cares? You are reading the book for pleasure and not to conquer anything or not to surpass anybody. You are reading it for your own self. So take it easy. Take a deep breath. Read that 1 page every day religiously. Put it out on social media. Tap the book. Do whatnot. This is your book. So these are a few things that I practiced when I was reading all of these books, and I will continue practicing it when I read more classics in the future, which I plan to, by the way. So let me know if you have read any big classics and felt accomplished, because I would want to know what you think about reading big books, or what you think about reading big classics. I love reading big classics. And yeah, with this we come to the end of the video. If you loved me talking about books and literature, I would be really grateful if you could subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Until then, go read that big classic and let me know how you feel about this process of reading an entire big book. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.